What's cracking everyone, Amy Crichton here, and in today's video we have another controversial topic comparing Sony to Canon, this time the FX6 to the C200. I've seen enough C70 versus FX6 videos to make me go nuts. I just don't think they're a similar form factor to be compared. They might have been released around the same time, but I think the C200 is a far better camera to compare to the FX6. It seems like a fairer matchup to me. All these cameras are very similar price range, going for around $5.5 US, with the FX6 being a little bit more expensive. But I think Sony can justify that because it is a new release and there's so many features packed into this thing. So we own the Canon C200 here at Foxdale Productions, and it has been a beast of a camera. It is fantastic to use. We love it. We still use it every day. It's our main shooting camera, but I have a few gripes with it. One of the biggest things is it's all 8-bit. There ain't no 10-bit codec in this camera, and that is the biggest downside. We did originally buy this camera for its RAW capabilities, but the Cinema Raw Lite is just horrendous to edit with, and it's just not worth it in the end. So we pretty much use this camera for all of our corporate interviews, TV commercials, all of our low to mid-range stuff we will use it for. We then have a Red, which we use for mid to high range stuff. Having the FX6 compared to the C200 is a pretty big deal for me. They're kind of around the same price range, but the FX6 just offers so much more for your dollar. I've been accused in the comments of being biased towards Sony. I haven't had a Sony camera until now. I've bought the Sony a7S III when it first came out, and I'm shooting on it now. The rest of the gear has been Red or Canon my whole life, so you can't accuse me of being a Sony fanboy or fangirl. It's not true. I'm just not sure why people would compare the C70 to the FX6. They were released around the same time, so maybe that's why. I just think the C70 is such a unique form factor for Canon, and so I don't think it's really fair on the C70 to compare it to the FX6, because the FX6 is just going to annihilate it. I think it's much more similar to the C200. Alright, let's go over some specs. So while I don't have the Sony FX6 sitting in front of me right now, it will be here in a couple of weeks, but I have had extensive experience with the C200. I have been shooting on that for several years, so I know the image quality that I can get out of that camera. I now have the Sony a7S III as well, so I know that the FX6 is going to be very similar to the Sony a7S III, so I can kind of compare apples with apples. Let's have a look how they stack up. So like I said earlier, the big draw card for us as a production company is to offer that 10-bit 422. The C200 only does the 8-bit. Both cameras do offer RAW. The C200 does RAW Cinema Lite, and I find it absolutely horrendous to edit with, and it's just too much trouble for what it's worth. So when it comes to dynamic range, the FX6 is going to give you 15 stops of dynamic range. The C200 is going to give you 13 stops. You will get more if you shoot in Cinema Raw Lite. The C200 has a super 35mm sensor, the FX6 is full frame. The low light on the C200 is a bit iffy. It's not great under low light conditions. That is also another plus for the FX6. Having that dual native ISO as well is a big plus. One of the downsides though for the FX6 is there are no XLR inputs on the camera. They are on the handle, which is a bit of a bummer. The C200 does have its XLR ports on the body. Moving on to NDs, and the C200 has built-in ND filters. The FX6 offers the electronic variable ND, which I'm so stoked about. This thing looks awesome, and it's going to change the way we shoot. So let's look at the resolution and frame rates. The FX6 offers 4K 60, 4K 120, and 240 frames a second at HD. The C200 offers 4K 60 and 120 at HD. Now the biggest thing with the C200 slow motion is it is soft, and I find it unusable and really hard to get focus, and the whole thing just looks a bit murky and muddy, so we don't use it. Both cameras offer autofocus. I haven't had any issues with the C200's autofocus, but I can't say that I trust it enough to use it. I have seen some great results out of the FX6. So this is an absolutely no-brainer. The Sony FX6 absolutely smashes the C200, and that's coming from a C200 owner. You just have to be real with these specs. I mean, Canon fans will hate this video again, and I'm sure I'll get a lot of dislikes, but you can't ignore the facts and you cannot ignore the specs, and this camera is full of awesome features. Ultimately, this is a win for us filmmakers with more variety from camera manufacturers, so as long as they're competing against each other, we are the winners. And it always comes down to the operator, not the gear you're using. You could have the best camera in the world and have no idea how to use it, and you're still gonna get shit images out of it. So don't think going and buying a new FX6 is gonna fix all your problems. You have to be able to shoot from your heart and your head to be able to get good pictures. And that wraps it up. Thank you for hanging out. I really do hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like, subscribe, and comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one.